Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Melayang serindit di atas pematang, merbah berkicau di hujung muara. Pemanis kata, selamat datang, awal bismillah, pembuka bicara. Yang berbahagia Datuk Seri Muhammad Hishamuddin Mat Yunus, Pengerusi Suruhanjaya Hak Asasi Manusia Malaysia Suhakam. Yang dihormati Barisan Pesuruhjaya Suhakam, ahli panel Datuk, Datin, Profesor, Doktor, Tuan, Puan dan hadirin sekalian. Saya Elza Nadia binti Sheikh Sulaiman, pengacara majlis pada hari ini mengucapkan selamat datang ke Forum Hak Warga Emas kepada hak ekonomi, sosial dan kebudayaan. Hadirin yang dihormati, sedia maklum, tanggal 1 Oktober setiap tahun, Malaysia meraihkan sambutan Hari Warga Emas Antarabangsa. Sambutan ini juga merupakan suatu pengiktirafan kepada golongan berusia 60 tahun dan ke atas. Tarikh 1 Oktober tersebut tidak jauh daripada kita, baru semalam rupanya. Maka tidaklah lambat jika saya mengucapkan selamat menyambut Hari Warga Emas buat semua yang hadir pada forum ini. Tidak kira berapa pun usia anda, sambutan ini perlu diraikan secara bersama. Hadirin sekalian, forum pada hari ini akan dimulakan dengan ucapan alu-aluan yang akan disampaikan oleh yang berbahagia Datuk Seri Muhammad Hishamuddin Mat Yunus, Pengerusi Suhakam. Majlis dengan segala hormatnya mempersilakan.
Commissioners of the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, Suhakam, yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Norma Mansur, Director Social Wellbeing Research Center, Universiti Malaya, yes. Esteemed panelists, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera kepada semua yang hadir. Bagi pihak Suruhanjaya Hak Asasi Manusia Malaysia, Suhakam, saya ingin mengalu-alukan kehadiran semua ke forum yang penting pada hari ini. Kehadiran para hadirin mencerminkan komitmen yang tinggi dalam usaha memperjuangkan hak-hak warga emas di negara kita. Forum hari ini bertemakan hak warga emas kepada hak ekonomi, sosial dan kebudayaan yang sememangnya sangat relevan ketika negara kita sedang negara kita sedang berdepan dengan populasi warga emas yang semakin meningkat. Menurut Unjuran Pertubuhan Bangsa-Bangsa Bersatu, Malaysia akan mencapai status negara tua atau aged nation pada tahun 2030 apabila penduduk berumur 60 tahun dan ke atas mencapai 15% daripada jumlah penduduk. Para hadirin sekalian, warga emas bukan sahaja membawa pengalaman hidup yang kaya, malah mereka adalah sebahagian daripada masyarakat yang memerlukan perlindungan, pengiktirafan dan penghargaan yang sewajarnya. Mereka perlu dilindungi dari sebarang bentuk diskriminasi atau penafian hak-hak asasi manusia. Pemerkasaan warga emas harus menjadi keutamaan semua pihak demi kelestarian masa depan. Di pihak Suhakam, kami akan terus komited untuk memastikan suara warga emas didengari dan hak-hak mereka dijamin. Para hadirin sekalian, izinkan saya untuk meneruskan ucapan saya dalam bahasa Inggeris. Distinguished participants, every year on 1st October, the world commemorates the International Day of Older Persons, recognizing their contributions while raising awareness about the challenges they face. This year's theme, Aging with Dignity, the importance of strengthening care and support systems for older persons worldwide, could not be timelier. As the global populations continue to age, we are faced with the reality that many older persons around the world, including here in our country, are vulnerable to violations of their basic rights. These vulnerabilities exist across various domains, especially economic, social, and cultural, which are key determinants of their quality of life. Older persons are valuable members of society, and as they age, it is our responsibility to ensure that their rights are upheld and protected. This includes access to quality health care, adequate social protection, and a support system that not only meets their physical needs, but also nurtures their emotional, mental, and social well-being. It is also a time for us to honor and recognize the vital contributions of caregivers, whether they are professionals or family members. Caregivers are often the unseen backbone of our society, providing the care of the need and attention that older persons require. In strengthening care and support systems, we must acknowledge the need for policies and frameworks that safeguard the rights and well-being of caregivers, ensuring that they too are supported. This recognition is crucial as it directly affects the quality of care provided to older persons. As we mark this International Day of Older Persons, I would like to take a moment to echo the call of United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who reminds us of the urgency, quote, to commit to strengthen care and support systems that honor the dignity of older persons and caregivers, close quote. This is not just a call to action, but a moral obligation to ensure that the most vulnerable in our societies are not left behind. Economic, social, and cultural rights are more than abstract principles. They are the building blocks of life. Live in dignity. These rights guarantee the essentials of human existence: adequate housing, access to health care, meaningful employment, and the right to participate fully in society. Yet, for far too many older persons, these rights remain elusive. Whether through the denial of health care, exclusion from the workforce, insufficient retirement funds, or the erosion of social protection systems, our senior citizens often find themselves marginalized, neglected, and forgotten. As a society, we must recognize these health challenges and work towards building a more inclusive system that protects their dignity and ensures their well-being. Another area that requires much attention is the current barriers being faced by older persons in seeking effective redress and remedies. The independent expert on the enjoyment of all human rights by older persons, Ms. Claudia Muller, in her report submitted to the Human Rights Council in August 2021, had raised this concern regarding accessibility to redress. Like any other dispute resolution mechanism, there needs to be developed a legal mechanism to resolve issues faced in the most efficient manner. Legislation may not necessarily be the preferred manner to resolve concerns involving emotions and family ties. Alternatively, a non-adjudicative dispute resolution mechanism could be considered as a method of dispute resolution to address issues involving elderly persons and family conflict. As we all know, Malaysia is steadily moving towards becoming an aging nation. The rights, dignity, and well-being of older persons are not just concerns for the future, but an immediate priority. If we do not act now, we risk a future where a significant portion of our population will live in hardship and in insecurity. Esteemed attendees, as chair of SUHAKAM, I'm proud of the work that SUHAKAM continues to do in advocating the rights of older persons. We believe that human rights should apply to all, regardless of age, and that our aging population deserves respect, care, and support. Over the years, Suhakam had organized various activities related to senior citizens' rights. These include dialogues, seminars, roundtable discussion with stakeholders regarding senior citizens' rights, and visits to senior citizens' home. Our reports, such as, quote, Aging with Dignity, Right of Older Person, unquote, published in 2005, and Care Services for Older Persons and Support for Caregivers, published in 2015, have highlighted the need for robust policies and actions to safeguard their welfare and rights. Globally, senior citizen issues are receiving greater attention, with international bodies such as the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, OSCHR, working towards a dedicated international convention on the right of older persons. Suhakam has actively participated in the open-ended working groups on aging and supported the issuance of joint statements by various national human rights institutions advocating for this cause. Earlier this year, during Malaysia's Universal Periodic Review, UPR, 21 recommendations related to older persons were proposed by member states, emphasizing the need for legal frameworks and national needs to protect their rights. We look forward to the government's acceptance of these recommendations, and Suhakam remains committed to monitoring their implementation. Esteemed attendees, for those unfamiliar with Suhakam, the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia was established under the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia Act of 1999. This act was recently amended to strengthen our mandate to promote human rights through education, advising on alignment of national laws with international standards, advising the government on international treaty participation, including monitoring domestic legislations and investigating any complaints involving human rights violations. This year marks Suhakam's 25th anniversary, a significant milestone underscoring our ongoing commitments to promoting and protecting human rights in Malaysia. Today's forum serves as part of our efforts to address the challenges faced by our aging population, bringing together diverse perspectives to collectively find solutions. However, our efforts cannot succeed in isolation. We need collaboration across all sectors, governmental agencies, civil society organizations, and private sector to create a comprehensive care and support system that upholds the dignity and rights of all older persons. As we move forward, let this International Day of Older Persons remind us of our shared responsibility to build a society where every older person is valued, respected, and supported. Let us renew our commitment to creating systems that honor the dignity of both older persons and caregivers. Marilah kita bersama-sama memperbaharui komitmen kita untuk membina sebuah masyarakat yang menghargai dan melindungi hak serta martabat golongan warga emas. Kita harus memastikan bahawa warga emas di Malaysia dilayan dengan penuh penghormatan dan diberi sokongan yang mereka perlukan untuk menjalani kehidupan yang bermaruah. Finally, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all attendees for their cooperation in making this forum a success. I would like also to acknowledge the dedication of the Suhakam team in organizing this event. Thank you once again for being here today. I look forward to the fruitful discussions and the meaningful outcomes we will generate together. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih diucapkan kepada yang berbahagia Datuk Seri Muhammad Isyamuddin atas ucapan alu-aluan sebentar tadi. Majlis dengan ini diteruskan dengan sesi Ucaptama yang akan disampaikan oleh Profesor Datuk Norma Mansur, Pengarah Pusat Penyelidikan Kesejahteraan Sosial SWRC Universiti Malaya. Majlis dengan segala hormatnya mempersilakan.
Terima kasih saudara pengacara majlis. Saudari pengacara majlis. Assalamualaikum and good morning. Yang berbahagia Datuk Seri Muhammad Hishamuddin Muhammad Yunus. Yang berbahagia Datuk Profesor Dr. Nur Azia, Datuk Hasna Rezwa American and Dr. Chu. Excellencies, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to speak before you and on the topic of hak warga emas kepada hak ekonomi sosial dan kebudayaan. And before I proceed, I would like to thank Suhakam for giving me and my colleagues, because I have to acknowledge the input provided by Dr. Amjad Rabi into this topic and other colleagues at the center. We are happy to share what we have worked on for several years and also share some of the proposals that we have submitted to the government. Malaysia has emerged as one of these fastest growing economies with an impressive history of rapid development and is on track to become a high-income nation, as I think many of us are aware. Over the past 4 decades, particularly during the period of rapid industrialization until early 2000s, Malaysian households have generally benefited from this economic growth. This progress is evident in the significant rise in the country's nominal median monthly household income and the overall improvement in living standards. However, as mentioned by Datuk Sri earlier, there are still many Malaysians who are still struggling to make a decent living, and not everyone has equal access to opportunities, leaving some feeling that their lives have not significantly improved. The country still faces the challenges of pockets of poverty, relative poverty, and made worse by rapid aging. The relative poverty more than double among the aged population as compared to the national average, which is 17%, and 42% among the older population. Ladies and gentlemen, the reduction in the young dependency ratio, the ratio of children under 15 years of age per working age person, will be taken by the rapid increase of old age dependency ratio. And this will be in the year 2050, which is estimated to mark a point when the old age dependency ratio exceeds that of the young dependency ratio for the first time in Malaysia. Older people, 65 and above, will exceed the pre-working age population of below 15. Until 2022, from 1960s to 2020, until 2020, Malaysia enjoyed a favorable demographic profile where the working age population expanded faster than the general population. And this favorable demographic period, widely referred to as the demographic window of opportunity, is ending. Expanding the working age population and the concomitant enlargement of the labor force have favored sustained economic growth as the country created sufficient jobs to absorb the rapidly growing labor force. As a result, however, of the falling fertility rate and longer life expectancy, but it's more of the falling fertility rates, which was very sharp, Malaysia's population has been aging faster than most other countries. And as mentioned too, that Malaysia by 2045 will be what we consider as an aged population or aged nation, which would constitute 14% of the total population. In comparison, it takes Malaysia 24 years to age, compared to France, 115 years, compared to US, 74 years, compared to Australia, 72 years. So that's how critical or how serious our problem is, because the economic or the wealth of the country need not necessarily be at the level where these countries were when they started to age. The question is, ladies and gentlemen, what will be the living standard of the aged population? And another question is, what is the government's commitment to social protection? Social protection can act as a lever, or it can become an important policy tool for the realization of human security and for achieving equity and social justice. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights includes the right to social protection in Article 22, which guarantees the right to social security. And further, Article 25 recognizes the right of everyone to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of oneself and one's family, which includes medical care and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, spousal death, old age, and other livelihood deprivation due to circumstances beyond one's control. Other international legal instruments and standards which Malaysia has signed, including 3 others: the UN Convention on the Rights of Child, UN Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, and also the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And in principle, social protection is the basic human right that contributes to the social well-being of an individual, be it a child or other adults, and simultaneously promotes a productive nation at large. I will touch upon the International Bill of Human Rights because it's from this Bill of Rights that should form or guide social protection policies in the country, and that have guided the Center in our promotion and advocacy of social protection. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, along with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, also known as International Bill of Human Rights, represents the care of international human rights law and represents the core of international human rights law and serves as the primary framework for defining and protecting human rights globally. Human rights has evolved over the years, and the first generation involves the civil political rights, which is negative rights, which includes rights to life, equality before the law, freedom of speech, the right to a fair trial, freedom of religion and voting rights, no torture. The second generation are the socio-economic rights. These are positive rights: right to be employed in just and favorable condition, right to housing, right to healthcare, right to social security and unemployment benefits, right to maternity leave and living wage. The third generation involves the collective rights, or what we call, again, the positive rights, which is right to healthy and clean environment, right to natural resources, communication rights, rights to participation in cultural heritage, rights to intergenerational equity and sustainability, right to development, right to internet and democracy. As Malaysia moves towards high-income nation, Malaysia should move away from providing the basic welfare, or what can be termed as a charity approach, into a more inclusive system of social protection. Plans and efforts for more effective social protection, as stated in the 11th Malaysia Plan, are aligned with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Specifically, they will contribute to achieving the third target of SDG, which is the complete elimination of extreme poverty in the world through the establishment of social protection systems and measures for all. And SDG 8 on sustained, shared, and sustainable economic growth, and SDG 10 on the reduction of inequalities between countries and within them. Ladies and gentlemen, social protection in Malaysia has evolved over the decades, shaped by the country's economic, social, and political developments. The system has expanded from basic social welfare programs to a wider social security programs aimed at addressing the needs of different population groups. Pre-independence into the 1960s were mainly rudimentary, focusing on welfare assistance provided by or started by the colonial authorities, religious organizations, and local communities. And it became more formalized after the independence to support vulnerable groups such as older persons, disabled, and orphans. However, social protection was limited and targeted only the most disadvantaged. The second stage of expansion is with regards to mainly on the labor market and social insurance. These include the extension or the strengthening of the employment-based insurance schemes, which includes the EPF, the Employees Provident Fund, and also the Social Security Organization, SOCSO, which were established in 1951 and 1969, respectively. Primarily, as I mentioned, focusing on retirement savings, but for formal private sector workers. And over time, to include SOCSO to expand to medical benefits, disability persons, and other forms of social protection for workers. The Child Care Act, too, was introduced, and later the National Coordination Council on Eradication of Child Abuse, which was established. The focus, too, in this second stage of the 1970s and 80s is the new economic policy which aimed at reducing poverty and inequality. Social protection initiatives then were seen as part of a broader strategy to promote economic growth, reduce ethnic disparities, and create a more inclusive society. The third stage is the broadening of the social protection programs into strengthening the basic pillars of social protection, and this includes health and education. The government began investing more in universal health and education services, recognizing that access to basic services and better education is necessary for the long-term development of the country. Malaysia's healthcare system was largely funded by the government to the citizens, and it is definitely a key pillar to social protection. The poverty reduction programs, the 1990s, saw a more explicit focus on using social protection or cash assistance as the lever to eradicate poverty or to alleviate the lives of many Malaysians, but this was solely to support the low-income groups. And it was through the Bantuan Sara Hidup, the Bantuan Rakyat Satu Malaysia, and the name had changed after, but still focusing on providing assistance to the low-income groups. The labor market, in terms of the active labor market policies, were more introduced through the microcredits such as Amanah Ikhtiar and others, and also the Islamic finance, the Zakat, Islamic social finance, and Wakaf also played a role in Malaysia's social protection landscape. The 2010s and until the current 2024 saw a marked significant shift when more of the informal and self-employed workers and reforms to introduce or to include these groups that were left in the past decades. Programs like Aisaraan, a voluntary EPF contribution for self-employed, and the expansion of SOCSO coverage to self-employed workers, including the gig workers and the other self-employed workers, were reflected in the new direction. And this has culminated in the establishment of the Malaysian Social Protection Council in 2016, and the council is chaired by the Prime Minister. The COVID-19 pandemic has further intensified the support for the low-income group through the Bantuan Prihatin Rakyat and also BKM that was aimed to provide direct cash assistance to low-income households, especially to support those impacted by the downturn. Now, in Malaysia, the role of state is contentious. There are two main school of thoughts on the approach on how state should play its role in social protection. The residual approach is what we are familiar with, where the private markets and family are responsible for meeting individual needs. The institutions or public institutions intervene only when the markets and family fail. Such intervention is only temporary and limited, and there's always an exit policy. The second approach, which is adopted by many countries, is the institutional approach. And this approach is where publicly funded comprehensive institutions take the responsibility of protecting individuals against any risks in their life cycle. And this is very much integrated into the society. This is predictable and universal benefits, which is outside and play an equal role as the market and the family. Now, I talked about the rights earlier. These rights, for both school of thoughts, for the first generation rights, both schools of thought agree on the inalienability of the first generation rights. The second generation rights, the socio-economic rights, is debated as they flow from a government's action where it is positive rights, and these rights is closely linked to the role of state. Hence, it is important that there is clarity on whether the state should provide basic social services as healthcare, including aged care, education, and shelter. They have a redistributive nature and result in the enlargement of the role of the state. Advocates of minimal governments, however, believe that the state's distributional activities, the second generation rights, are strictly circumscribed both on ethical and efficient grounds. And the advocates of the institutional approach agree that the free market is regarded as both efficient than any other system, but it has costs in terms of poverty and equality where the government can alleviate those costs. Thus, a combination of free market and government action, the second generation rights, jointly maximizes efficiency and equity. And then we come to the rights approach to development. As opposed to the residual role, as mentioned earlier, the rights approach to development call for the government to understand the demand side of social protection services. And as society becomes more urbanized, bigger claims and a growing need for state to assume responsibility for safeguarding individual basic socio-economic rights. And this is also due to the widening inequality and also the demise of the laissez-faire approach. Now this approach, the rights approach, will progressively or has progressively removed the boundaries between generations of rights, especially the first and second generation. What are the challenges and the current reforms that's happening in the country? Since 2019, that was the first Malaysian Social Protection Council meeting was held. And at this first meeting, the life cycle approach was adopted, i.e., the government has made a commitment that protection should be looked at or should be provided from birth until cradle to grave. Yeah? So this will, ladies and gentlemen, a bigger work of this can be found in my, as I will share the code later in the work that we have published at the Center in the National Social Wellbeing Blueprint. But a big majority or a large majority of the proposal have been submitted to the Malaysia Social Protection Council. So from child to as maternity is the second vulnerable stage in one's phases in life, and also often the disabled, and the last group will be the aged. So protecting the vulnerability or the underlying causes of poverty is the essence of the life cycle approach. Expanding coverage for informal workers is one of the challenges and also the reform that is undertaken by the Malaysian government. This is to extend social protection and social security to informal sector, including gig workers, self-employed individuals, and those in the care economy, the care professionals that was mentioned earlier. The social security instruments such as the one that is provided by SOCSO and EPF have both the elements of cross-subsidization and also the solidarity elements in these instruments. The aging population, as mentioned, Malaysia is transitioning, and the review of the adequacy of retirement savings, healthcare, and also social care, the palliative care for older person is one of the areas that needs serious attention. A multi-tier retirement, proposed retirement income as part of the income security is proposed with the social pension as the foundation, supported by contributory with an element of redistribution and cross-subsidization. And this is part of the solidarity as a society. The other element or the other aspect that is always left out in our discussion on social protection is the financial sustainability. And our proposal is complete, that without the right revenue or sources of revenue, and the current sources of revenue is proven to be unsustainable, so our proposal is to broaden the source of government revenue through a general consumption tax, because this will definitely help with the provision of social protection in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, I would conclude by proposing that Malaysia should not falter with the speed of social protection reforms, as we are joining the group of advanced countries. Therefore, our social protection should be at par with the OECD countries if we have, and we do express our intention to join the OECD countries. Although we have made significant progress, especially in the areas of retirement savings, healthcare, and social insurance, challenges remain in ensuring inclusivity. And this inclusivity would include everyone, every adult in Malaysia, to be part of the social security platform, because everyone will be aging. Adopting the rights approach and institutionalizing the initiatives of SP reform is necessary. Thank you.
Terima kasih atas ucaptama yang disampaikan oleh Profesor Datuk Norma Mansor. Prof Datuk diminta kekal berada di atas pentas. Majlis mempersilakan yang berbahagia Datuk Seri Muhammad Isyamuddin Mat Yunus, Pengerusi Suhakam, untuk naik ke pentas bagi menyampaikan cenderahati kepada Profesor Datuk Norma Mansor. Dipersilakan. Seterusnya, tuan-puan diminta untuk bangun dan bergerak sedikit ke hadapan kita dan menghadap layar skrin di hadapan, kerana kita akan mengambil gambar secara berkumpulan. Yang belakang boleh bergerak sedikit ke hadapan. Yang semua berdirilah. Menghadap ke depan. Boleh, tuan boleh ke depan sebelah Suhakam. Okey. Okey, yang lain boleh berada di row yang apa ni? Okey.
Saya tak ada white. Oh. Apa saya pakai